Today, we're going to dive into something really important, an official review of the law that's supposed to protect Australia's most essential services. You know, the things we all rely on every single day, from the power grid to our hospitals. So the big question is the shield we've built actually strong enough for the kinds of threats we're facing now and the ones just around the corner?
Okay, let's start with a really simple question. Think about it for a second. What happens when the power goes out? I mean, yeah, it's an inconvenience, sure, the lights flicker off, but it's so much more than that. It's actually the first domino in a very long line.
And just look at how fast those dominoes fall. A power outage takes out communications. And without comms, water systems can fail, hospitals go dark, our transport grids can lock up, supply chains just stop. This kind of cascading failure is exactly why governments create laws to protect what we call critical infrastructure.
And that really brings us to a huge point here. We live in a deeply interconnected world. None of these essential services exist in a bubble. A single point of failure doesn't just create a local problem anymore. It has the potential to trigger a full-blown national crisis.
And you can see those dependencies mapped out right here. I mean, just look at healthcare. It's not just doctors and nurses, right? It relies on a constant, stable supply of energy, clean water, and communications. And our entire banking system, forget about it. It is completely dependent on comms and energy. It's this incredibly complex web, and if you break just one thread, the whole thing can start to unravel.
So, how does Australia actually try to protect this fragile web? Well, the answer is a piece of legislation called the Security of Critical Infrastructure Act, or the SOCI Act for short. The best way to think of it is as our national shield.
Now, what's really important to get here is that this isn't just another cybersecurity law. No, it's way broader than that. Its job is really to give the government a clear picture of who owns and controls our vital assets, to make sure those owners are managing all kinds of risks, and, crucially, to give the government options to step in if a disaster threatens our economy or our national security. And this shield, well, it hasn't exactly stood still. It all started back in 2018 as a pretty simple tool, really just for visibility, knowing who owned what. But as you can see, over the years, more and more layers have been bolted on. It's been expanded to cover cyber resilience, then all hazards resilience. Basically, it's been in a constant state of trying to keep up with a crazy, fast-changing world.
But here's the catch. Despite all those additions and all those layers, an independent review has found some pretty serious cracks in our shield. The headline, the big takeaway, is that the Act in its current state is just not fit for purpose anymore.
This quote from the reviewer, Dr. Jill Slay, just nails it. After years of amendments being layered on top of each other, the law has become too complex, too confusing, and frankly too slow. What she's saying here is that it doesn't need another patch. It needs a fundamental rethink from the ground up.
So what does that actually mean in the real world? Well, on the one hand, it's not all bad. The Act has definitely made company boards pay more attention, it's given the government better visibility, and it's improved how big incidents get reported. But, and this is a big but, the people who actually have to deal with it, the stakeholders, are pointing to huge problems. It's confusing, it duplicates other regulations, and maybe most importantly, its enforcement is seen as pretty weak. And this is where it gets genuinely concerning. The review found that our shield has massive gaps when you start looking at the threats of the future. We're talking about AI-powered attacks, the risks from quantum computing, even physical threats like unauthorized drones. These are things the original law could never have even imagined. It's basically a framework built for yesterday's problems.
And let's just put a number on one of those gaps to really bring it home. Get this. According to the World Economic Forum, more than half of all large organizations say their single biggest barrier to security is their supply chain. That's a massive, massive vulnerability that the current law just really struggles to get its arms around.
Okay, so the shield is cracked. How do we fix it? Well, the good news is the review provides a really clear blueprint for forging a much stronger one.
And it really comes down to 3 key steps. First up, simplify the whole thing. Get rid of the confusing overlaps and make it way easier for companies to actually comply. Second, and this is huge, enforce the rules. Move away from this sort of light-touch, helping hand approach to one with real penalties for not doing the right thing. And finally, give people a clear roadmap so everyone knows exactly what they need to do.
But the review also brings up this fascinating point when it looks overseas. See, Australia's approach is all about the technical resilience of the stuff, the pipes, the wires, the servers. But then you look at the UK, and they've started thinking differently. They see social cohesion, the trust and resilience of the community, as a critical asset in itself, something that needs protecting just as much as a power plant. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most profound finding in this entire review, because it suggests that beyond just fixing the law, there's a much deeper cultural issue at play here.
I mean, just let that quote sink in. It is stunning. The review found that for many of the people whose job it is to handle compliance, it's just paperwork. They lack an emotional connection to the real-world mission, defending Australia and its citizens. It's become a box-ticking exercise completely disconnected from its true purpose of national security.
And that really leaves us with this one final thought. We can simplify the law, we can strengthen enforcement, we can create better guides, we can do all of that. But if the culture is one of just bare minimum compliance, rather than a genuine commitment to protection, is a stronger law ever truly enough to protect a nation?